Hi guys, it's Kathy. I hope you're doing well. I really like this OJ trial. I really am enjoying it. Nostalgia and everything. It's way crazier than I thought it would be. Yeah, the lawyers are annoying. And when they keep asking the same questions over and over again, it's annoying. When they keep going to the sidebar, it's annoying. But I'm really glad we're doing this because I just didn't know half this stuff, and I'm glad we're getting to see it. Our children's children, they're going to say, like, who is OJ? I asked my kids who Rodney King was, and they did not know. And everything we take for granted, they don't know. So I'm glad. I'm glad we're watching this.
No foundation, that's the objection, correct? You can use anything to refresh recollection.
I'm not, that's not the basis of my objection.
All right, let me see it sidebar.
I'll vouch for him. I don't know why, but I will. Oh, come on. They're doing a sidebar. After I just said how much I enjoy watching this, they're going to annoy me. Yeah.
All right, thank you, counsel. Mr. Cochran, proceed.
Thank you very kindly, Your Honor. I want you to, by the way, let me ask you one other question. You were present when officers Van Adder and Lang came, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you knew they were from robbery homicide, did you not?
I was told they were from robbery homicide.
Okay. Who told you that?
I believe before they got there, Furman told me they were coming to take over the case.
All right. And you knew Furman before that particular evening. You worked in the same division with him, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And so what I want you to do now is to take a look at defendants 1006 for identification, and I want to ask you whether or not a review of the times logged by Officer Cummings refreshes your recollection of the approximate times that Van Adder and Lang arrived in the early morning hours on June 13th, 1994.
Well, I can tell you what time it says, but I was in the back when I got there. I don't know how long they were out front.
Okay. Would it be correct, and well, without telling us what it says, would you agree that they arrived sometime after 4 o'clock in the morning?
Yes, sir.
All right. And at that time, from the time they arrived after 4 o'clock in the morning, they were then the ones in charge of this investigation. Is that correct?
As far as I know, yes, sir.
All right. Now, you mentioned that you'd had this conversation with Detective Furman, and you knew him before that night. Is that correct?
I had seen him. I didn't know him personally.
All right. You'd never been on a particular homicide scene where you'd been the investigator?
No.
Had you ever spoken to him before?
Just in passing.
When you were inside the residence at some point, you and Furman were inside the residence, weren't you talking?
Yes.
In fact, you were in the back talking where the ice cream was?
No, we're in the kitchen.
Well, the kitchen's not too far from where the ice cream was on the landing. Is that correct?
50 feet, maybe. I don't know.
All right, about 50 feet. All right. But at some point, the two of you were back by the ice cream also, weren't you?
Just when we entered the residence together.
Okay, when you came back in the back way.
Right.
All right. And when you were in there talking, did you talk about the subject matter of O.J. Simpson come up in the conversation?
No.
You two of you never discussed that?
No, we
At
didn't.
that time? Now, at any time while you were inside, in any of the three times that you were inside this location, did you ever at any time see this photographer inside the location?
No, I didn't.
You never saw him take any pictures, did you?
Not inside, no.
Now, with regard to this crime scene, without putting the photographs back up, from the sidewalk to where Miss Nicole Brown Simpson's body was located, Would you agree that that was approximately 10 to 12 feet, that general area?
Seems like it'd be a little farther,
All right, well, give us your best estimate.
15, 20 feet.
You placed it somewhere 15 to 20 feet
Yes, sir.
from the sidewalk to where she was located, is that correct?
Yes.
And from the front of that property, sir, to the back, all the way to that back gate, can you give us an estimate of how many feet that would be?
I'd only be guessing. I don't know.
Well, you told us how many times you walked this, and we want to get your best estimate. Not a guess, your best estimate, sir.
130 feet, 140 feet.
All right, if I were to tell you that it was more like about 160 feet, would you agree with that?
I don't know. I didn't pace it off. I don't know.
All right, so let's assume it's 150 to 160 feet.
Objection. No. Seems that's not evidence. No
So
foundation.
I asked him to assume that.
Overall, it's a
Thank you.
hypothetical question.
All right.
But I think we need a little, hold on.
All right.
I think we need a little from where to where, the sidewalk to
All
the
right.
mid-alley,
Yes, Your Honor.
where's the property line? What are we talking about here?
Certainly, Your Honor. Assume from that front gate, near where the body was found, female body was found, to the rear gate. That's the distance we're talking about. Would you put that in the area of, you said 130, 140 feet, something like that?
It seems a little long, but if you say so.
Well, no, I want your best estimate.
From gate to gate, I would estimate 120 maybe.
120 feet? All right. And as I understand, I understand that's just an estimate. In that area, at least in the front part of the gate, there was a lot of blood flowing down toward Bundy. Is that correct?
That's correct.
There's a lot of blood there. Would you agree with
Yes.
that? Okay. As we've seen in the pictures. And going back toward the back gate, in what you call 120 feet, do I understand that what you found was 4 blood drops in this 120 feet? Is that correct? With 1 blood drop out in the alleyway?
I didn't count them. I don't know.
Today you don't know how many there were altogether?
I didn't count them. I don't know.
All right. You don't know how many there were?
No.
All right. Whatever number you had, there was a certain number inside the gate and a certain number outside the gate. Is
That's
that
correct.
Now, when you saw this photographer in the backyard, in the back area there, in the alleyway, taking pictures, it was still dark outside at that point, is that
Right.
correct? Do you know what time the photographer arrived there?
No, I don't.
You have no idea?
No, I don't.
You don't know his name either?
No, I don't.
When you saw him in the back alleyway, what was he taking pictures of?
When I first saw him, he was taking a picture north from Dorothy, north through the alley. I saw him take a couple pictures of the rear of the residence. He took a couple pictures of the vehicles, I believe.
All right, if I can approach again.
Yes.
Let's see if we can look at this together and figure out which one's the photographer. Over here where it says SID photos, would that be an indication that's probably the photographer?
Yes, sir.
And what does it show his name?
Objection, Your Honor.
That's hearsay. He can read it to himself to see if it
Okay.
refreshes his
Read this to yourself and tell me whether or not this refreshes your recollection of the name of the photographer from SID.
I never knew his name. I don't know.
All right, this doesn't refresh your recollection.
No.
All right, do you remember that he had arrived there? About what time he arrived there? You don't know that either?
No, I don't.
What time was it that you saw him in the rear of the location, sir?
It was after I had shown Furman and Phillips a house and came back out.
And what time would that be?
Sometime around 3,
Around 3 o'clock in the morning?
I believe. I'm not positive.
Again, that's your best estimate, around 3 o'clock in the morning? And that's when you saw him taking these pictures in the rear, is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, you pointed out in the course of your direct examination that you understood it was very important not to traipse through and track through this particular crime scene, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you described for us on many occasions during Ms. Clark's direct examination the great pains you took not to walk through this blood or any so-called footprints, right?
That's correct.
And because you knew it was very important to try and preserve the integrity of the evidence, is that correct?
That's correct.
You knew that either the detectives or someone of the direction of the detectives, a criminalist, would come out and try to mark these various exhibits, is that correct?
Right.
In fact, you also described for us that at some point you saw some blood on the rear gate of the location there
Correct?
you described for us? Remember that?
Yes.
By the way, you never at any time ever saw the photographer take any pictures of the blood which you claim you saw on that rear gate, did you?
No, I didn't.
Are you aware that the first pictures taken of that blood was on June,
Objection.
July?
Assume fact not in evidence.
Sustained.
Let me phrase it this way, Your Honor. Were you aware of whether or not any photographs were ever taken on June 13th, 1994, of this blood that was supposedly on that rear gate on that date?
No, sir.
Do you know what date they got back out there to take those photographs,
No, I
if
don't.
ever?
Objection, that assumes facts not in evidence.
Oh, he knew. Were you,
Answer will stand.
thank you. Were you present at any time any pictures were taken of the supposed blood on the rear gate?
No.
May I put this exhibit up here?
Which exhibit?
It's the one of the photographs of the rear gate. This, for the record, Your Honor, is 53A. So that we're clear, Officer Risky, these photographs depicted on 53A, you never saw those taken on June 13th, did you?
No, I didn't.
In fact, while you were still out there on June 13th, before you left, have they started hosing down that area yet?
No.
You didn't come back on any date after that, did you?
Just in passing to chase away looky-loos and stuff.
There's no such thing as too cold
Patrol duties.
Yes, sir.
to get into a
And
hot
at some
tub.
point in the course of your patrol duties after June 13th, you became aware that somebody hosed down this entire area, did you not?
I assume they hose it down after they were done.
All right. You saw the blood was up at some point, did you not?
Right.
You know when that was, sir?
No, I don't.
You don't?
No.
The photographs Ms. Clark showed you to your left with regard to the exhibits and the supposed blood on the rear gate of Bundy, those were not taken when you were there on June 13th, were they?
Of the gate?
Yes, the gate.
No, sir.
And I see some dark, powdery substance on the rear gate. Your Honor, this is on 53A. You know what that dark coloring is on that gate?
It would be an assumption.
Give us, you're a police officer.
I'd assume it's print dust.
All right, was that print dust on there when you were there that night?
No,
That's something that was put on afterwards, is that correct?
that's correct.
So when you left at 7:15 on June 13th, that print dust wasn't there, was it?
No,
When you were out there on June 13th up to the time that you left at 7:15, you didn't see anybody out with one of these little rulers saying, Los Angeles Police Department, Scientific Investigation Division, Photographic Section, as depicted on 53D. You didn't see that?
no, I didn't.
And as best you can tell in looking at 53A from your vantage point there, those purport to be photographs numbered of the rear gate at Bundy, is that correct?
That's correct.
Have you ever seen any photographs in connection with this case of pictures taken of the front gate at Bundy?
Not specifically of the front gate, no.
Now, as a police officer of some 4 years' experience, you're aware of how photographs are taken sequentially so that the numbers, you try not to mix up the numbers when you're taking photographs. Is that a fair statement? You're trained not to do that?
I don't take pictures with numbers by them. I'm sorry. I don't know.
You have no knowledge of that?
I've seen them take pictures. I've seen number evidence, but I have no knowledge of how they do it.
All right. I'd like to, Your Honor, mark another photograph if I can. I'll mark this defendant's 1007 B1007. I'd like to approach Judge Counsel. I'm going to place the defendant's 1007 before you. And do you recognize that man depicted in that photograph?
I don't know his name, but I recognize him.
Okay, who is he?
I believe he works for SID.
As a criminalist
Yes, sir.
with the name Fung, F-U-N-G, ring a bell?
Yes, sir.
Did you ever see this man, Mr. Dennis Fung, at the crime scene while you were there?
No, I didn't.
He wasn't there when you were there, was he?
No.
And he appears to be in D1007, pointing to an area near the top of the fence. This is the fence that's depicted here on 53A, is that correct?
Top of the gate, yes.
Top of the gate? And you don't know what date this picture, this photograph was taken, do you?
No, I don't.
All right. I next want to mark here if I can. D1008. And I'll show it to council. It's a photograph also of a fence on the property.
All right.
I want you to look at this photograph, D1008. Has a number 116, a card with 116 thereon. And I want you to see whether or not you recognize that particular photograph.
Looks like a picture of a gate, but
All right, do you know which gate that is on the property?
I can make an assumption.
Well, no, not an assumption. Do you know which one it is?
Both the gates look the same. I don't know.
All right, how many gates are there altogether,
It's
sir?
two.
And there's the rear gate, right, we've been talking about?
That's correct.
And where's this other gate?
In the front.
Is one near the front?
Yes.
All right. So can you look at this and tell whether this is in the front or in the rear?
I'd say that one's in the front.
You think this is in the front? All right. Now, if this one's in the front, if D1008 is in the front, do you think it unusual that it has a number 116 on it when you turn and look to your right at 53B, it has a number 116?
Witnesses indicated he has no knowledge of the
Sustained.
number.
Finish. May we
Sustained.
approach, Your Honor? May we approach? May we approach on this?
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, hold on. Court reporter has to. All right, thank you, counsel. Mr. Kaplan.
Thank you, Your Honor. With regard to D1008, which you've indicated you believe to be number 116 on the front gate, were you present when this photograph was taken?
No.
All right. Describe that at some point, when Detective Phillips and Furman were still in charge, I presume, or at some point that morning, strike the latter part, that Detective Phillips came to you and asked you for directions to the Rockingham residence?
It was either Phillips or Furman. I know Phillips gave me a phone and one of them asked me directions.
All right, well, let's think back in your mind's eye. Did Furman ever say to you that he'd been to that location before, that morning?
To...
To the Rockingham residence, Mr. O.J. Simpson's
No.
home? Never said that?
No.
All right. This was preparatory to the officers going over to the Rockingham residence?
That's correct.
So by that time, Van Atter and Lang were also present, isn't that correct?
Yes.
Were you aware that Detective Van Adder knew how to get over to that location?
No.
Having worked West Los Angeles?
No,
By that time, Van Adder and Lang would then be the ones in charge, isn't that correct?
I assume so, yes.
And once they arrived at the scene?
Right.
So, was it your understanding all four of these detectives, Van Adder, Lang, Furman, and Phillips, were going to Rockingham?
That's correct.
And did you see them leave at some point to go to that location?
No, Phillips gave me a phone. That's the last time I saw him.
Now, when Phillips gave you a phone, what kind of phone was this? A cellular phone
It
or
was a
something?
cellular phone.
And it's one of those little handheld cellular phones?
That's correct.
And was that phone owned by the city of Los Angeles?
I don't know. He just gave me a phone and said if he needed anything, he'd call me. That was,
And you don't know where that phone came from?
no,
Did you ever seen it before?
no,
He just handed it to you.
that's correct.
And what time of evening or early morning was that Detective Phillips handed you the cell phone?
It was just before they left. I don't know what time it was.
All right. Was it light yet, sir, at that point?
No, it wasn't.
Still dark, right?
Yes.
Okay. And your understanding was that all four of these detectives were going to leave to go over to Mr. O.J. Simpson's house?
That was my understanding, yes.
Had you shared with them the fact that you saw an envelope with the return address to Mr. Simpson inside the house? Have you told anybody that?
I don't think so, no.
Had any of these officers, other than Furman that you know of, been inside to see the photos on the wall?
Just Phillips. Phillips, myself.
All right. And do you recall having any conversation at all with Van Adder or Lang about where O.J. Simpson lived?
No, I don't.
All right. Now, when Phillips handed you this cellular phone, you kept it in your possession?
That's correct.
Did you ever give it back to him that morning?
Yes, I did.
And what time was that you gave it back to him, sir, if you recall?
It was when he and Furman returned to the scene. I don't know what time it was.
You know what time? You don't know what time that was?
No.
While you have that phone, did you make any phone calls on that cellular phone?
No.
Do you know whether or not Phillips had another phone, a second phone?
I don't know. He just gave me a phone.
Well, when he gave you the phone, he said, "Call me if you need me."
No, he said, we'll call if we need anything.
He said, "We'll call,"
That's correct.
meaning the four detectives, one of the four,
Whoever.
would call you back.
That's correct.
Okay. Have you ever seen a log of Detective Phillips's phone calls made that particular morning?
No.
And while you had the phone in your possession, you never made any calls, right?
That's correct.
What time do you think that Detective Phillips returned from the Rockingham residence? At the time you gave him the phone back?
I would estimate sometime around 6:30 in the morning.
About 6:30?
Maybe a little later, I'm not sure.
About how long would you say they were gone?
I'd say a little over an hour.
As you search your memory, do you think that they left somewhere around 5:30 and came back about 6:30 or 6:40?
I'm not positive what time they left, no, sir.
Did you keep the phone on your person at all times during that hour?
It was on the dash of my patrol car, yes.
Was anybody else in the patrol car with you at that time?
My partner was near it, but not in it, no.
Do you know whether or not he used it?
Nobody could have used it. It didn't work.
It didn't work?
No, battery was dead.
It had gone. The battery had gone down
That's
at
correct.
that point? So when you gave the phone, this cellular phone, back to Phillips, the battery had gone down. Is that right? Or it was down?
That's correct.
How do you know it was down? You tried to use it?
Because I believe they called. They either had a black and white with them, and they used a radio to contact us, or they had another phone. Because I had tried to see if the phone was broken, and it wasn't working at all.
So when you tried to use it and it didn't work during that time,
I turned it on to see if they were trying to call us, and it was dead.
you couldn't turn it on?
No.
All right. Your Honor, I want to mark this at this point as defendant's next in order. D 1009.
I got bored. All I know
Do
is there
you
was a
happen
cell
to know the
phone.
number of that particular phone?
Battery's dead.
No, I don't.
Sure.
Okay, we needed a sidebar to wake us up because I have no idea what's going on right now. Something about no pictures being taken of blood and a cell phone that died.
And I presume you don't know the number of the phone that you had at that
That's
particular
correct.
Now, when you wrote out a report regarding your observations that particular morning, isn't that correct?
I would call it a report, a statement.
Okay, well, you wrote out a statement about your involvement on that particular morning?
Yes.
And in writing that statement out, you tried to be, of course, as accurate as you could? Did you?
I wrote what actions we took. I didn't write all the evidence I saw, no.
All right. The question is, did you try to be as accurate as you could in the report?
Yes, for what I wrote.
When you were in the academy, you had occasion to learn how to write reports, did you not?
That's correct.
Okay. And what time, Officer Risky, did you write this report? Do you recall?
I would say around 4:30.
All right, let me approach, and
I used
I'd
it
like
as
to
an
mark
ad
this
libs.
D1010, Your Honor.
All right, D1010.
D1010, I'd like to approach it. And I'm going to show you this report. First of all, and ask you if this printing is yours, first of all. Officer Risky. Look at D1010. Is that yours?
Yes, sir.
And is this printing your printing?
Yes, sir.
And I want to turn it over. There purports to be a signature here.
That's mine.
Is that your signature?
Yes, sir.
And it has a, is that your number as an LAPD officer?
Yes, sir.
West LA Patrol? And 6/13/94, what time is that? Rick?
5:15.
And so you wrote this report while you were still at the scene, is that correct?
That's correct.
And where did you write this report? Where were you when you wrote it?
I was in a rear alley, sitting in my car.
All right, were you accompanied by anybody at that point?
My partner, Officer Terrazas.
And he wrote a report also?
Yes.
Did you both write them at the same time?
No.
Who wrote their report first, if you recall?
I believe he did.
He proceeded first?
Yes.
And it's a fresh recollection that you wrote your report at about 5:15 in the morning?
That's correct.
Now, in this report, you don't, at any place in this report, indicate that you went inside the residence, used the phone, called Sergeant Rossi, saw an envelope with O.J. Simpson's name, return address thereon, and felt he was in any way involved. You don't mention that, do you?
I don't believe so, no.
Do you want to take a look and see?
I don't believe it's in
Why
here.
don't you read it yourself, first of all, and then ask some questions.
Okay.
Have you read that to yourself?
Yes, sir.
You don't see anywhere in that report where you mention going in and using Miss Nicole Brown Simpson's phone, do you?
No.
In fact, what you indicate specifically is that, and I'll quote, I then observed bloody footprints on the steps and landing behind victim one. Footprints were headed westbound on the sidewalk between 873 and 875 South Bundy. You wrote that, did you not?
Yes, sir.
I then observed the front door of 875 South Bundy to be standing open. You wrote that, didn't you?
Yes, sir.
My partner and I then backed out and requested a supervisor, additional units, R/A. What does R/A mean?
Rescue ambulance.
So now, When you said you backed out and requested a supervisor, was that Sergeant Rossi? Your
Sergeant
supervisor?
Kuhn.
Sergeant Kuhn? And you didn't write that on there that you went inside and made a call to your immediate
No, I didn't.
supervisor, did you?
No.
Now, you were asked a number of questions about
We need
how you
Marsha to
put
get
up
into a
these,
fight with him.
this yellow tape to secure the scene. You recall that?
That's correct.
And again, that was an effort to try and keep intruders out. Is that correct?
Right.
Police officers, however, were free to come and go inside that scene. Isn't that correct?
No.
They weren't free to come and go?
No.
There weren't a number of police officers who walked inside that scene?
No, there weren't.
And
No
is
idea,
that during the time
Nancy.
you were there?
During the time I was
I
there,
haven't
right?
been paying attention.
You can't speak what happened later, can you?
No.
But while you were there,
Objection made there as opposed to when he left the scene.
Overruled.
while you were there, when the yellow tape was up, give us the names of the officers who walked inside the residence there, or inside this crime scene, inside the yellow tape area. Should you give us those names?
Just inside the crime scene?
Yes, who were in and around the area there at the Bundy crime scene.
No objections on that day.
What, inside the tape, inside?
Inside the tape.
Your question was compound and
Okay, Your Honor, let me
complex.
make it clear, okay? All right? Thank you, Your Honor. Now, with regard to, the
I actually think this part right here that we're not listening to is where the case starts to fall apart for the prosecution, because this is where he starts to nail down the issues with evidence collection and things like that.
crime scene, I want you to tell the court and jury, the officers who were given any access inside either the front gate or the back gate or the residence there at Bundy while you were there.
I get that and that's compound.
Sustained.
All right, can you tell us the names of any officers who were given access to the Bundy crime scene while you were there?
Well, the Bundy crime scene encompasses a large area.
I understand that. So tell me the names of the officers.
I'd have to look at a log or something.
All right, may I approach again, Your Honor,
You may.
with 1006?
Yes.
Place before you D1006, and you can look at this. This will refresh your recollection, and you can tell the court and jury which officers, if any, were given such access.
There was myself and Officer Terrazas, Sergeant Kuhn, Officer Wally, Officer Glorioso was in the back, Phillips and Furman, Sergeant Rossi, and the detectives.
All right. Anybody else that you can recall at this point?
No.
What about Lieutenant Spangler? Did he come at some point?
He came. Yes, he was in the rear.
All right, so he's a lieutenant. He could get inside, couldn't he?
Yes,
Every
sir.
time they say Sergeant Rossi,
So let's see if we can count them.
I think of Criminal Minds, but it can't be, because if Sergeant Rossi was on this case, it would have turned out different.
It would be Risky and Terrazas. 2. Cummings and Sanchez. 4.
Cummings and Sanchez weren't in the crime scene.
Okay, they were not. Okay, Sergeant Kuhn was.
Yes.
3. What about Captain Zeman? He wasn't there?
He was, I believe he was at the tape. That was it. He didn't go across the tape. I saw him at the tape.
Okay. McAllen and Wally.
It's actually McGowan. It's not McGowan.
Okay. McAllen.
Right. He didn't go in the crime scene. Wally did.
Wally did. So 2, 3, 4.
They weren't.
Five.
They weren't there.
Okay. 4. What about Hyder investigator?
No. They went to the foot of the alley and took the 2 children to the station.
What about Glorioso?
Glorioso was in the rear.
All right. And then the 2 detectives?
That's correct.
And then, of course, the other 2 detectives from robbery homicide.
And Sergeant Rossi. I don't see his name.
Okay, Rossi. Okay. And possibly the photographer?
Not. Well, he went on the grass, if you consider that in the crime scene.
Well, he's in the back taking pictures, wasn't he?
Right.
All right. And then Van Adder and Lang, is that correct?
Right.
Can you call any others at this point, sir?
No.
Is there a Captain Gartland from Homicide Detectives who arrived Right about 7:20. Did you see him that morning?
I was gone. I left at 7:15.
Okay, so you didn't see Captain Garner?
No.
Now, I want to show you now a picture, or three pictures I'd like to show counsel and ask you whether or not you can recognize this particular officer. I'll show these three pictures to counsel.
All right, with court reporter, please. And I'm sorry, Madam Reporter, why don't you stay there? Ladies and gentlemen, there's a evidentiary issue I need to resolve, and I'm going to need to watch a videotape out of your presence, obviously, on all of the gizmos here. So I'm going to ask you to step back into the jury room, and hopefully this will just take a few moments.
Did anyone
All right, Madam
check
Reporter,
and
why don't
see
you
if
set
there was
up
a
again?
monitor in the jury room?
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Be seated.
The video is on a laser disc, Your Honor. We've previously dealt with this before. Counsel have seen it. I'd like to show it to the court again at this point.
All right, at this point, your purpose of showing the videotape is to ask Officer Risky if he recognizes the officer who's depicted.
These officers, they're on, Your Honor. And should he, I think perhaps he should step out while we're doing this, Your Honor.
All right. Officer Risky, why don't you step outside and don't talk to anybody while you're out there. Thank you. Also, if there's a TV monitor out there, don't watch the monitor.
What if there's a crime happening out there and Officer Risky's goes out there, but the judge just said he's not allowed to talk to anybody? Judge, come on.
Your Honor, there's the additional issue of the discovery of this video. We've never been provided a copy of this video.
Well, let's see it first. You may
Laser
not have an
discs?
objection to
Yeah,
it once
I
you've
had
seen it.
Charlotte's
We've
Web.
seen it before, Your Honor.
How long,
Laser
how long
disc.
is this
Not
excerpt?
very long. We've all sat here and watched this before. Your
Not very long doesn't tell me
Honor.
enough.
Okay, Your Honor. Well, 6-7 minutes, all right?
All right.
5-6 minutes.
So, Your Honor, this is the same videotape they tried to do before, with the same problem.
No,
I don't know that yet.
Yeah.
that was a problem. That was detective Lang.
I'm older than Google. Some of you're crazy. Did Brent say how old he is? Brent, are you here? How old are you?
All right, does that complete the,
Yes.
all right, Mr. Cochran?
This supposed search for truth, counsel goes to great pains through over and over
Happy
again talking about how this crime scene is
birthday!
protected. We're going to be able to
I know I'm
demonstrate, Your
late.
Honor, in one of those
Sorry.
photographs, there are 9 or 10 people in this little tiny
Happy
area, Your Honor,
birthday,
that they've got in
Mary.
there. We can identify a lot of those people from the coroner's office. We know what time they got there, shortly after 8 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the morning on the 13th. What we're trying to show here is that, it's not, they would like to have everything their way where they could show that everybody walked around and did all these things, but that's not the truth. And why would they want to mislead this jury? And the facts are, we'll be able to establish it, and I should be able to ask this officer whether or not he represents, whether or not he recognizes Lang, whether or not he recognizes Van Adder, whether or not he recognizes Rogers, and any number of other officers that he may recognize who are walking through that scene in this particular area. And we know that the bodies are not moved till the coroner gets there, and they're there at that particular time. So I think the video is very clear. With regard to the officer, it seems to me that these seem to be
Good
sequential.
birthday.
A person walking right in the crime scene. And I think we'll be able to establish that at some point they hosed this area down when they didn't need it anymore, and this officer's walking right through there. And it's just as though the detectives are walking through there. There may be a sheet or whatever down, but you can see on some of these videos, Judge, some people are wearing gloves, some people aren't. Some people have booties on their shoes, some people don't. But there are like 8 or 9 people crowded in this little area. And that's quite contrary to what Ms. Clark has tried to tell this jury. And that's not the truth.
Ms. Clark?
He's got a point, guys.
No, the truth of the matter is that this crime scene was handled appropriately. Mr. Cochran would like to show photographs out of context, out of time, and out of sequence, and in one case even trying to misrepresent that 3 photographs are of one person, and the more closely we look, the more we realize it's not even the same person in those 3 photographs, trying to mislead and confuse this jury, and all we're asking for is fairness here. We want the jury to get the truth. We want it to be untwisted and undistorted by counsel in an effort to twist their minds. We want them to get the truth. If the jury concludes that the crime scene was not properly handled, so be it, but at least I want them to make that conclusion based on the way the truth is, what the evidence really is, not some distorted, twisted version of it that counsel wants to give them. Taking these photographs out of context, time context that is a real problem. At some point, we have to release every crime scene, and not just this one. It doesn't get preserved for all eternity. What happens, as the court is very familiar with, is that they go in, they take the photographs, they collect the evidence, and at some point we have to clean up the place and move on. Now, this crime scene was washed down, but not till a few days afterwards, as far as I recall. It was washed down by the family. Prior to that time, though, on the 13th, everything was collected and preserved at some point, after which people were, I'm sure, walking on it, but at that point it no longer mattered. The evidence was collected, and it was photographed, and it was diagrammed, everything was done. And when that's all done, then yes, people will walk through a crime scene. Eventually they have to. Otherwise, we're going to have sections of this entire city where no one can walk for all eternity because it was a crime scene. My God, most of downtown L.A. would be untouchable. So there's just no way that we could possibly use these photographs for any probative value unless we establish what the time was. If the time is demonstrated to be at a point in time when this officer indicates it was carefully cordoned off and no uniforms were allowed in, or very, very few, then that's one thing. Or at a time when he's saying we're all walking up the left side of the pathway in the shrubbery to avoid the blood in the walkway, and the time shows that this occurred when he claims it couldn't have, that's impeaching. But at this point, it's not impeaching, it's distorting, it's confusing, and it's misleading, and that's all it is. And under 352, the court has an obligation to make sure that the jury is not so misled.
She's got a point there.
The counter that the court sees on the tape that they played for you is not even the counter from the video. It's the counter from the laser disc that counsel has, which is irrelevant to everything in this case. Counsel knows the real time. He knows it, Your Honor, and he's deliberately hiding it from this court. And he wants to hide it from this jury as well, so that they will be misled and confused. And that's the problem I don't care if the jury sees this videotape. If it's put in the correct time frame, then they have a right to see it. The problem is that this is a cut-up, chopped-up version of something where counsel has conveniently deleted everything that doesn't support his argument and has deleted the time that would give it any probative value or even any impeaching value. So at this point, we have no upside. There is no probative value. We have only the prejudicial value of misleading and confusing this jury. And until counsel can establish the accurate time when these photographs were taken, when the video clips were taken, it should never be shown to the jury this way.
Sure.
Two more issues, Your Honor. We have never been given a copy of this tape, although counsel promised it to us, a month ago? We should have had it, and we should have had a chance to review it. And that's another discovery issue. They've had it, obviously, for quite some time. The court ordered them to give it to us. They never have, and we still don't have it. We need to know what kind of editing machine they used in order...
We don't need to know that.
Do you think we...
No, we don't need to know.
No,
We
no,
don't
no.
need to know that.
No, the court may not be interested, but the people need to know.
No, we
because that's-
don't need to know that.
But in any case, Your Honor, it's also this officer's testimony that he left at 7:15. And from these photographs, the nature of the sunlight shown, we can see it's much later than that. So we need the real time. We need the real time, or else it's not even impeaching. It's only confusing and misleading and very prejudicial. There is no probative value.
Can I respond, Your Honor?
Briefly.
Counsel talks all this stuff about wanting the truth, and they always want to hide the truth.
Knowing the court reporter has now 4 minutes left of paper.
Thank you, Your Honor. They always want to hide the truth, Your Honor. We have Mr. John Whitney, who helped to shoot, who helped to put this on the laser disc. And that is a laser disc, and counsel is more than aware of it. They've seen it, and they've had it before. We'll give them a copy of our laser disc, Your Honor, if they want it. The court, this is preposterous for her to stand up, make that argument to right-thinking people in this courtroom and outside. You can see these people stepping over the bodies, Your Honor. Lang is stepping over the bodies. The bodies have not been moved. And she has the temerity, the unmitigated gall to talk about telling the truth about this crime scene. 9 people are gathered around there, and they want to give you a picture that they tiptoed around and never touched anything. That's preposterous, Your Honor. So ultimately, they can have all the theories they want. But as I said before, they're going to be killed by the facts. And I would like, Your Honor, if you have any questions, to address Mr. Whitney about this. This isn't anything we made up. These are the same video they've seen now for the last 2 or 3 weeks. They're more than welcome to our video, Your Honor. We can lay a foundation for this. We can identify these people in that video, and we have a right to show that to this jury. I mean, this is what cross-examination is. We will be able to demonstrate that they did not handle this scene appropriately, Your Honor. And we can clock in the video. The worry about clocking in the number, Mr. Whitney, would you address the court? He has knowledge, if the court would allow me to ask him, about the timing on the video also.
I mean, the counter that's going on the laser disc, that really doesn't concern me. Well, I know what counters are on laser discs. I mean, it's not a mystery.
Mr. Douglas advised we give him the tapes also, Your Honor.
We have given them the tapes.
Yes, Your Honor, we gave him the first tape on the Monday when it was discussed. We gave him the second tape last week. I put on the record.
He did.
All right. All right, at this time, and I want to emphasize at this time, I'm going to sustain the objection under 352 and under foundational bases for these reasons. And listen carefully, counsel. One, your offer was that you wanted this officer to look at some of these items and identify who these police officers were. There's no dispute as to who these people are. We all know who they are. It's not a disputed issue. So to waste the court's time to look at a videotape and say, this is Detective Van Adt or this is Detective Lang, that's a waste of the court's time because that's not a fact in dispute. The issue is who had access to the crime scene and when. Without establishing when those videotapes were taken, it's misleading to the jury unless you've got somebody who can say in relatively absolute terms when those videotapes were taken. This witness cannot testify to those things because he testified he was in a car in the back alley until he left the crime scene. That was his assignment. There are certainly other witnesses who were at the front who can testify to these things. This is the wrong witness. And this is the wrong time to bring up this particular issue.
What started out, Your Honor, with us talking about the officer, the uniformed officer. And may I just address that for a moment? Where talk about misleading, where we have them go to all this trouble to show all these things. I think I should be permitted to ask them if he recognizes that officer walking right through the scene. Your Honor, the
That
evidence...
one photograph
Yes,
that we have of the back of the officer,
yes.
that one photograph, I'm going to allow you to ask him if he recognizes the person.
Okay, thank you.
The other stuff,
All right,
that's a factual dispute as to who this is. We may never resolve that.
all right, but I want to ask him. And the others, they'll be Lang and Phillips along, and we'll deal with that, Your Honor.
Right,
And I
that's
asked them to check
the
their
point
records.
I'm making.
They have to take-
Do you understand the point I'm
I heard you
making?
loudly and clearly, and I'm ready to proceed with that.
All right, but that
I love
videotape
you,
is not
Donald.
coming in unless and until somebody comes in and says, I shot that videotape, this is the date and time when I took it. Because the timing is critical here. But this is not the guy to argue with it about, over it. Ms. Clark.
Yes, with respect to the photograph that counsel is going to show to the witness, until we establish a time frame for that picture, may I ask that we not be shown to the jury?
But you just ruled on that.
No, I'm going to let him show that, but you can on cross-examination ask, is there any idea? And we'll tell the jury, I'm sure through your cross-examination, that we have no idea when that was taken. Could have been the next day, could have been 3 days later.
Because even if you can identify the officer, how does that help to time the picture?
Yeah, you ruled on it. then.
Yeah. All right, let's have the jury, please. All right, hold on just a second. I was going to break at 3:15. Do you want to break now?
Yeah, because I'm going to pay for it. And we're going to take a regular recess at 3:15.
I mean, I'll stop now if you want to change court reporters. All right.
I like getting people into fights with each other.
Court reporter says she just wants to change paper. We'll take a break in about 15. We're going to take a half hour at 3:15. All right, record should reflect we've now been rejoined by all the members of our jury panel. Mr. Cochran, you may proceed.
Thank you very kindly, Your Honor. I'd like to show Officer Risky photograph, which we're going to mark, I guess, as defendants next in order, Your Honor. Is this D1011?
1011.
D1011. Now, Officer Risky, do you recognize that as the crime scene there at Bundy?
Yes, sir.
And do you recognize the uniform on that man who's walking in the crime scene area?
Looks like an LAPD uniform.
And do you recognize, or from that vantage point, are you able to recognize who that particular police officer is?
No.
Of the names that you gave me earlier, were they all male officers?
Yes.
And of that number, are there any who are particularly buff or who work out regularly?
Overruled. No, not at this point.
Yes.
Tell us which ones who were in uniform out there that day who work out who were particularly buff, the males.
Officer McGowan, but he's black.
It's probably not him.
Are we accounting for body armor in this one as well?
Well, I can ask that question.
Officer Glorioso, he works out.
Glorioso?
Yes, sir. As far as I can recall, that's about it.
Would it be helpful to see the list again of the ones who were?
I know who was there. I just...
All right. But you can't tell us the name of this particular officer?
No, sir.
From that vantage point?
No.
Now, the detectives were dressed in plain clothes, were they?
Yes.
In fact, on one of the photographs that you were asked to look at this morning, we have a photograph of Detective Furman. And did you see him and how he was able to access the area where he was looking for the mid cap, where he was pointing down towards it? Did you see him access that area?
Yes, I did.
Did he have any booties or anything on his shoes at the time he was walking in that area?
No, he didn't.
Were any of the officers wearing any booties on their shoes at all that morning?
No.
Were any of the officers at all using gloves that morning when they were out there?
Not that I recall, no.
Because they have a picture of a man walking over the bodies. And they don't have his face, I don't think. They just know he's buff, so they're trying to figure out who it is. They also have a picture of someone who took their gloves off and put them on Ron's body. So they know that some people were wearing gloves.
While I'm looking for a photograph here, describe for the court and jury, if you would, sir, the area where Mr. Goldman's body was found is a rather small area, is it not?
That's correct.
And in that area, there's some shrubbery,
Yes.
and it's kind of an area that's totally enclosed, is it not?
That's correct.
Can you give us the dimensions of that area where his body was found?
I would estimate 6 by 6, 10 by 6, I'm not sure.
10 by 6? I'm advised that the photograph that I'm looking for, Your Honor, is number 55, which probably the switch should be cut on. Just before we do that, however, let me get back to this area where Mr. Goldman's body was found. What are the dimensions of that area?
I would guesstimate between 6 by 6 and 10 by 6. I'm not sure.
If two men in the approximate area of 5'10", 175 in there, in that particular area, they pretty much cover that area. Is that a fair statement? They were standing upright in that area?
To cover it?
Yes, sir. They'd be pretty crowded in there, would it not?
Possibly, yes.
Did you step in that area?
No, I didn't.
You were on the other side of
On
the
the
fence,
outside
is
of
that
the
right?
fence.
All right, may we see People's 55 for identification? Cut the feed drum.
That's John Beagledev's channel link. Oh, you got it anyway.
Place this exhibit on the board. Madam Clerk, what number is this? Do you remember? 875 Bundy.
54.
P54. I'll place it up here. So, with regard to P54 for identification, the area that you've described as 10 by 6 or smaller is the area where Mr. Goldman's body was found. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so it's bounded by a fence on at least two sides. Is that correct?
Right.
And is there a tree or something to the left of where the body's found there?
I believe he was leaning against a tree, yes.
All right. And do you remember how big that tree was or is?
No, I don't.
Now, with regard to this particular exhibit here, was any of this evidence moved while you were there? This
No.
envelope or any of these items?
No,
And while you were there, it was not moved as far as you know?
it was not moved.
It was not moved at all? All right. Let me see P55. P55, you're looking for this.
Now, you should help the chief for this letter.
Yes, sir. Yes. Now, can you see it on your monitor?
Yes, sir.
Is that Detective Furman?
Yes, sir.
And the items that he's pointing toward, were they obscured from view under the plant material, plant foliage area that we see?
Partially, yes.
And thank you for making it clear. And he is in that photograph standing over in the dirt area. To his left is where Mr. Goldman's body was found.
That's correct.
And were you still at the scene when this photograph was taken?
Yes, I was.
Was this after you'd been up on the landing and it showed the detectives the various items that you'd seen earlier?
This is after they returned from Rockingham.
All right, you were still there?
Yes.
And so this would be about what time in the morning?
Whatever time they get back, I don't know.
All right.
6:45. I don't know.
All right, 6:45?
I really don't know.
All right, after they returned from Rockingham. But anyway.
Right.
And that's Detective Furman's shoe in that photograph?
That's correct.
Did you see the photographer take this picture?
Yes, I did.
And where was he standing when he took the picture of the photographer?
He was, I believe he was standing on the steps up to the landing. Either that or on the landing itself. I'm not quite sure.
Above where the body was.
Right.
He was somewhere behind this particular detective at the time he
Right.
took this photograph. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, with regard to this photograph here, this is People's 875 South Bundy. People's 54, and I guess this is the second photograph, Your Honor, on the left in the middle. There is a shoe in this photograph also, some officer's shoe, without being covered in and about the scene there. Whose shoe is that, do you know?
I have no idea.
Did you see this photograph being taken?
No, I didn't.
That's not your shoe, is it?
No, it isn't.
Just a second more, Your Honor.
Sorry?
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
I think we're about to lose the easel there.
Yeah, it seems that way, Your Honor. Let's see. I'll hold it. Madam Clerk, the evidence found at Bundy, number of that one?
No, that hasn't been knocked out.
Can we, what will be your next one?
You want to mark that as People's next in order?
Yes, I think it's People's Exhibit, Your Honor.
People's 56.
People's 56? All right, well, this is People's 56, the evidence found at Bundy. I want you to take a look, if you will, at the envelope in these two different photographs, People's 54 and People's 56. First of all, I want you to look at what's been marked 104 on People's 56. See the envelope here?
Yes, sir.
You see where the grouting on the envelope is across the grouting?
Yes, sir.
Here at 104, do you see that?
Yes, sir, I do.
And I want you to look at the People's 54, I believe. See the grouting here?
Yes, sir.
The envelope's on the other side of the grouting?
Yes.
Can you explain how that envelope got moved?
No.
Can't?
No.
Also, it's one other photograph I need you on.
All right, let's take our recess then at this point. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a recess at this point. Please remember my admonition to you, don't discuss the case amongst yourselves, form any opinions about the case, have any contact with any of the parties in the case, or allow anybody to talk to you. Don't perform any deliberations till the matter has been submitted to you. Let me ask everybody to be seated and be quiet while we're waiting.
Yeah, lateness.
All right, we're going to reconvene at 4:45, and let me just tell you one other thing before I let you go. As I mentioned to you, we were contemplating taking a field trip out to the scene, both at Bundy and at Rockingham, with a few side stops in between. I plan on doing that, as I mentioned to you, in the next week to 2 weeks, and when we do that, I'm going to encourage you to dress comfortably, since it'll be a rather long day. All right, you're the best dressed jury I've seen in a long time, so let's see what kind of casual clothes you have. All right, let's reconvene at 4:45. All right, and officer, you can step down. You're ordered to come back half hour.
All right, guys. Well, that's enough for today. We did it for today. Go dress comfortably, like the judge said. I mean, what he just showed is damning. He just showed the footprint of someone walking over the body. So this is where it begins. This is where it starts to unravel and go downhill. Thank you so much for coming out. Thank you. I don't know. There's a 50% chance I'm going to do a live today after Judge Fleischer's docket. And there's a 50% chance I will not be doing a live today. So I might see you later. If not, I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks, guys. See ya.